Hello and welcome all. We have a special announcement. I was going to say almost. We have a special show at least for you. Uh, there has been some rumors going on in the background and even some announcements, and now we have at least start to see the top of the iceberg of this new edition that is coming out. And Phil sort of thought it would be a great idea to sort of have a discussion and have a chat with you other guys about this, and I both me and LittleWing were eager to jump in on it, and that's why LittleWing and me are sitting here and waiting for Phil to join this show. Uh, he's just, I think, finishing up a few things, and then he'll come join us. But I thought we'd just get a little bit of a head start. So, hello and welcome, LittleWing.
Hey, Archangel. Hey to everybody in chat. So, how are you feeling about it then?
Oh, I would definitely love to also hear about chat how they feel it. So we had a quick talk about this also before the show, and I think it's definitely better than I feared, and it's not as good as I hoped. I think going into this, my overarching fear was this, like, what they're gonna break this time, which is not the most hopeful place to start, I will admit. And as I also talked to you about before the show, I will try to throughout the show not just be the bitter old man wrinking his nose at everything and just pointing out all the flaws that I think there is, and try to also see a bit of light in this. And you sort of mentioned that you're going to take the opposite approach.
I think so. I think your view maybe shows the long gnarled veteran of Games Workshop that has been playing for many years that has just seen many changes. For me, I've not been playing so long, so I am generally positive about it.
So I played Blood Bowl more or less, I think, from first edition. I have played Warhammer Fantasy from third edition. I played Warhammer 40k from third edition. I played at least 7 or 8 of both of those. So I've seen over the years a lot of changes, and back when I was younger, I think it's just me getting old and bitter. That was more like, oh, this is cool, this is nice, and then over the years it's become like just cynical and just like, nah, what are they gonna break this time? Like, but we'll get definitely more into the details and the weeds of the specifics here. It's good to see that at least someone, Goldman, is loving everything. I hope that is not just being ironic and just actually that is your opinion. Uh, and Maximus, I think I'm more aligned with you that it's not that I hate everything. It's more like there are certain things I hate and there's things I like, and I would have loved that it was like there's things I dislike and there's things I really love. That I think would have been like the place that I hoped for we would have ended up. But yeah. So
I think Phil's joined us. Hey, Phil, how you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Just watching an advert for the channel. Yes,
good.
very exciting day.
Yeah, definitely.
And obviously, I don't know kind of what you've spoken about for 6 minutes, but
Just saying hello.
Yeah, broad strokes.
so I again, we didn't kind of really get much time to kind of talk about this through, but I wonder whether it's kind of talk about the things that we absolutely know, talk about the things that we can maybe imply, and then maybe the things that they haven't told us that maybe we can hope for. I think maybe is kind of a good way of kind of going through it.
I definitely think
Yep.
so. And maybe just for a heads up, Phil, I will be the grumpy old man. It's sitting in Denmark and complaining about everything, and Lil Wing have chosen to take the role on being like the light of sunshine and being positive.
So I'm allowed to be somewhere in between, which is kind of going to be my plan.
Perfect.
So yeah, which is great. So should we start? I don't know whether you what you're sharing on the stream,
So
but
I
I wonder
think
whether you actually want to share the article to the screen.
I think
which
I
think
think
might be very useful.
I think we can definitely hit there too. I need to then set up some slides and stuff like that. So I have I've pre-cooked some slides. and sort of also a thought about like certain things we could talk about. So the slide that I'm sharing currently is the slide of the new box that is being shown on the article, and the I would like to call it artwork, but I'm not sure I'm willing to go that far. I really do not like the art style, I must admit. Again, being the grumpy old man that I am, of course. So I have to hate it, but I really do not like the art style. It's
Gav's saying I'm very quiet, by the way, just before I start talking again. So Gav's saying I'm very quiet. I don't know whether that's just Gav not really wanting to hear what I say.
I can try to boost you on my end here, see if that helps, because that
Again, I don't know. So
is
I think they've been fairly consistent with the artwork, and I don't think you really have that much to moan about there.
so.
That's if that's going to be the first gripe, we're in for a long hour.
Oh,
Um,
definitely, that is my first
of
gripe,
your
because I
of
actually
your
think I think this speaks, at least to me, to a bigger underlying issue. And if it just for comparison, if you compare the artwork of the box, and then you compare it to the artwork of the two new Spike articles that they already sort of books that they have announced, I'll just have to go back in OBS here and find the right slide here. This one. So this is also, let's call it modern Games Workshop art style, but this actually looks nice. This actually looks, and I think the problem that I have with the box set is that it just seems like, don't get me wrong, but it looks like you're making this for kids. You're trying to appeal to people who are definitely not, I would say, the target audience. And it sort of reminisces me of certain rule
so
changes that it seems to be, it's like you're trying to appeal to some people who are not really currently playing, and maybe hoping to introduce new people. That's cool, that's fine, but then you should probably have picked some pictures that is a little bit more spiffy and nice looking, and because clearly
so
Games Workshop can do it.
yeah, I mean I was going to say I think games like Blood Bowl and um, Warhammer's kind of board game. Is it Underworld? Warhammer Underworld. It's their
Yeah,
Age of Sigmar, kind of like board game.
yeah,
I think they are kind of meant to be their entry points into like their universe. I would think because of their much lower price point. They're probably they're certainly more accessible from a model count. Um, and so I kind of don't mind that. I'm sure no one will mind me saying this, but obviously Blood Bowl was a game that was kind of first released in the 80s, and when you go to large events, you can tell, because you tend to have I always kind of find, much like I was a massive brass band player. You tend to find with a lot of hobbies, you have a group of people who are kind of around a particular age, so kind of around the sort of 40s and 50s. You then have some older than that. You have some younger than that, but kind of like you have that normal distribution kind of around that. And I think the problem we have is, if that norm distribution, that average age keeps increasing, and it's not staying where it is for new generations. So I actually think a lot of the changes I think they have made has been to try and improve the accessibility of the game, and to improve the appeal of the game to new players. So taking out complicated rules such as wildly inaccurate, taking out rules such as interference, making catch-all terms. I've just got like the clear wording. So you've got now distracted. So you now no longer have boneheads, really stupids. They're the same things. It's just distracted. I really like that that thing. I also think you could possibly even going down to the secure the ball action. I think that's another thing where you kind of go, okay, so even as a rookie player who won't yet understand the complexities of kind of like how to kind of play the game, even if you think like football teams, kids football teams, they'll run around like headless chickens and they'll try and
Yes.
kick the ball around and try and get it in the goal. Whereas when you watch a professional standard, they'll have patterns of play, and so that will still happen. But adding in the secure ball action, I think takes away that thing of, oh, I'm playing Kemri. I didn't pick up the ball again. Oh, look, that Skaven gutter runner's come in and I'm 1-0 down. Oh, okay. Oh, it's happened again. Oh, I'm 2-0 down. So I think there's a lot in here that is meant to make things easier. I probably say that the thing that's non-roster related that I think will not catch on is their addition of the Blood Bowl tokens. And the only reason I would say that is because I think the community has done such a good job of filling in that part of the hobby that I don't see people moving away from those third parties and going to Games Workshop. So I don't see people going and buying tokens from Games Workshop when places like Charlie Victor, other providers are available. Do
I
very good skill bands
was gonna,
that you can use.
I was gonna
I think that you've got them on the screen at the moment. I
yeah.
think they look very good. They do look
Yeah.
very good. I think though, when you go to those big events, I you're going to have those third party people there. You're not going to see Games Workshop sue Charlie Victor for their ideas. It's not like they came out with them first.
No.
So I don't see this being something that's going to catch on. I don't expect to turn up to tournaments and see lots of people using GW stuff. But I do understand why they've put it in there.
I think it's more a question of increasing the accessibility to it more than anything. And I think maybe for me the bigger issue is that if you I play I'm like true nerd, right? So I have like cupboards full of board games. And I think the problem with these tokens are the board of Blood Bowl is already nitty gritty enough, and I have a hard time seeing me actually being more or less able to place all these and make it any clearer on the board. And I think that is one of the things that's always going to be difficult with Blood Bowl because of the size of the miniatures and stuff like that. Is that balance between reading the board state and having more tokens, having more details. I think at least for my taste, I would much rather have seen it like bands that you could sort of wrap over the players, like the model's shoulders, so it was like hanging onto the model instead, so you could much more just leave it on top of the models than underneath or beside, because like when you get those like a, let's call it, cage or any like nitty gritty formation where everyone is shoulder to shoulder, yeah, good luck placing those in between the models. I'm gonna take tweezers out and place them in between, and then use the tweezers to pick them up again after. Like don't get me wrong, I like the idea of making the board state more readable. I also have a problem with, like, from other board games, knowing like more tokens is not always the answer to your problem. Like I love Risk because it's token wise really good. The rules are not really great. Axis and Allies have sort of tried to fix that issue by, oh, we'll just have more tokens. We will more different tokens, and it's like, yeah, but you're not going to drown tokens, and it's going to be micromanaging those tokens, and it's sort of that balancing act. And I think some of the tokens might be used. I think more than specifically, but yeah.
I think the tokens make sense for new players, and I agree with what Phil's saying. The accessibility, because I mean, although I'm not until the UKBBL in March, I'm not a TT player. But if you don't get fresh blood in, you're going to turn up in 20 years and it's going to be like a set of Tomb Kings playing the game, wandering around. So you need to get this in. And I like the tokens. I think that they give new players a clear idea of marking and following the game process. But whether, as they're saying in chat, people that really get into it switch over to Charlie Victor, I think that'll probably happen. But yeah, I like them. I like the artwork for them as well.
I think it might also be just like the natural progression of like you get a set of dice with the game, and don't get me wrong, but I think we all have started at one point in our life with the dice that came in the game, and all of us being super nerds don't go that long before like those dice not good enough. I'm gonna get some other dice. They're gonna have to be a different color or shape or whatever, like or the artwork on them, and then you can sort of like maybe not the right word for progress into more like say high-end stuff and stuff like that. I don't think that is going to go away, but I think as a starting point in, let's say, come with the box sort of thing, I think it's fine. I don't see the problem. I think they will have a hard time if they sell them separate, which probably by Games Workshop standards they probably will try. I don't think there will be a big sell on that, but we'll see.
I'll be interested to see whether GW start selling these tokens as kind of like their own separate pack. I would suspect they probably will do. Obviously, then it comes down to, can they take a bigger share of that market by maybe making the prices really competitive?
I think just like with the tape measurements and dice and blast markers and all that sort of thing, like I think they're just saying like there's a huge market. None of that currently with at least with these tokens, right? For Blood Bowl, we are getting, if we can just get 10-20%, they'll probably be happy. I don't think they can sort of outcompete everything. They just want to be like, let's have something for those people who always like the brand loyalty and be like, oh, I have the Games Workshop stuff. Like I have the Game Workshop dice, the Game Workshop tape measurement, the Games Workshop blast markers, and blah 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 blah. Right? Like Games Workshop bag to carry everything in, because clearly nothing less will do. Of course, like we all been there. I have a Games Workshop bag from back in the day for carrying my models, and I would never do that today because it like there's better brands out there.
100%. It's very interesting though, talking about how these things will be different. I think compared to UK and Europe and then elsewhere. Tech are obviously talking about they had to pay €150 to the UPS for customs proceedings. So the tokens from the box still make sense. I'm very surprised that other European countries have not locked onto this, and they're doing.
I'm fairly sure. I haven't checked.
I mean, I don't know whether they're the same quality as Charlie Victor, but I would turn around to any UK-based Blood Bowl player and say, if you don't own Charlie Victor bands for tournaments, you should own Charlie Victor bands for tournaments. I just think they're really good quality. The only thing that annoys me is that the guy who does Charlie Victor, Duncan, he's got his ball tokens, and I'd really like the ball tokens to be slightly bigger so they fit the bands in. That would be the only thing to do. Very good point by Gav. If you want Charlie Victor bands, you could always ask the UKBBL to order them for you, and you can pick them up at the UKBBL event. That's the other way to do it. So yeah, that's the other way.
I'm just
anyway, the skill.
Trying to find the pictures of them for us who do not live on that side of the pond. I was going to say, is this correct?
While you're doing that, I think moving down to the article, so we've kind of spoken about a couple of things. I think the next thing worth looking at is the passing game, which obviously we know massively nerfed in the season 2 edition. Passing was kind of in a pinch, or basically reserved for elves who needed to score in 1 or 2 turns. Interesting that they're going to make passing easier for everybody. I'm not sure though how they make it so that passing becomes more reliable. I mean, they talk about many players have had their passing ability improved, but throwers can still do it the best. So this is kind of, I think, where we get into kind of the speculation point. Are they talking about when they're passing, they're going to keep those passes at 2+, or are they going to rework the passing skill? So maybe passing amalgamates accurate, so your throwers still have 2+, and you can add a +1 to short and long, something like that. The other thing I thought is, do they actually just bring all of the passing down by a single level? So it kind of becomes the same as like agility. So most teams are passing on a 3+, 4+ for kind of undead teams. Then you have elves kind of passing on a 2, and then those passing players who've been passing on 2+, do they actually get a 1+? So they're essentially passing 6 squares on a 2+, and then it becomes kind of 3+ and 4+. I think Gav's probably right. I think Lyman are probably going to gain +1 to passing across the board, but I think they've got to make passing. If they're going to make passing reliable, they've got to make it a lot more reliable.
I think, in all fairness, with the removal interference, which I think is, I never felt it really introduced much more than just added complexity to the game. The wild inaccurate, again, I get sort of wide there because it maybe in some ways it was too reliable in certain situations, but I still think it's more complicated and also made really weird situation where it's like I'm trying to throw for the end zone, but I ended up throwing it to my own end zone because it's the opposite direction, and it's like So I think much of the, I'd say, gained reliability in throwing for the throwers is probably going to be the skills. And I don't know why, but I had this crazy idea, and I don't think it's what games were going to do, but I just think they could have, instead of having that it increases 1 by each band, if it increases more than 1 by band, meaning that short passes, even by like normal line players or something like that, wouldn't be nearly as affected. You could then make short passes with normal players like linemen on a 3+, but much more than that, it becomes really risky. And that would still leave the throwers with skills and stats of maybe even throwing on a 1+ as a base for some of the throwers to actually really shine through still, but would still enable you to do a general left of throwing, but it would be more short-ranged. That was a crazy idea I had. I don't think that's what Games Workshop can do because it would be too complicated to say in one way.
I mean, a suggestion from L-Plate Gaming that you just make the dedicated throwers 2+ across the board. Yeah. I think that bit is it. If you're starting to kind of then go, well, we'll make passing semi-reliable for everybody. You take away one of the arsenals of the passing team. So I wouldn't like to see them return to a world where, for example, I'm going to use orcs. Sorry, I always seem to use orcs. I don't want to return to a world where I'm seeing like orcs without skills throwing on a 2+, because you're supposed to, with these bash sides, if you can get them down to 3 turns left in a drive, they've got a chance of scoring, but it's difficult. 2 turns is nigh on impossible, but there's still a chance to do it. I think if you make if you give the throwers the 2+, and you've already given, I think, bash sides another big bonus by using the secure the things. We can talk about animosity, absolutely. I think removing animosity from the orc thrower would be absolutely
it's most of the insane things that they ever induced, that the thrower will not give the ball to anyone, and it's like your only job on the field is to throw the ball, and you won't don't give. But anyways, that's orcs, so let's not get too weird. But I think they're actually going to have to do throwers more than just 2+. I think they're going to have to go down for elves 2 on 1+. And I think it's more a question of, so if is assuming that the first three, the shortest band of throwing right, that's standard rolls, because that would be the easiest way to explain to new players. You roll the standard that says on your piece of paper, and if you want to throw further than that, you get a modifier. That makes it's clear. So if we assume that human linemen would do it on a 3+, I think the way to make the argument why throwers should have such higher, like 2+ and even maybe 1+, is that you go like, well, we need to increase the cost of those bands. So for example, the first one might still be 0, the second band is 1, the third band might be 3, and the last band might be 5. Meaning, like, sure, your lineman can throw on 3+, but he will only do like really short passes and be reliable. That's a way, like, you don't even have to do like 2 for each band, but like just by squeezing that standard 1 per band into something else, or you need to do something with the skills. That passing skill, yes, you reroll that. That's fine. That's gonna help, of course, but you need more than that. Like, are they all gonna be born with accurate, like, for example, or something? Could be a thing.
Or safe pass or something.
Safe
like
pass or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think probably the passing game has probably been the biggest single challenge that they've had to work out, to kind of bring it back to relevance. I would probably think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it got far too nerfed, didn't it? Let's be honest, it got far too nerfed.
And I kind of understand, like, we were in a scenario that, you know, you were just having like War Dancer standing at the back for 6 turns and going pass 2+, pass 2+. Oh, first game I've got a level, and then you do that again in the second game. Okay, we've got a second level, and now this, if you're playing in like a league format rather than like even a ladder format, I think it's the same. Like teams like Wood Elves, teams like Elven Union, they can start to get quite powerful quite quickly, because you're able to whack the star player points on them. They obviously haven't mentioned this, so this is kind of, we spoke about the things we know, things we can infer, and then things we'd like to see. I think I'd probably like to see star player points perhaps for catches, something like that.
So
It's something that they're doing.
Or making a catch.
Yeah, I'd like to see it, even if it's a 1. I think that wouldn't be too bad. But I mean, obviously, you've then got exactly the same issue as had you're then doing the throwing. So if you have a team that has a thrower, they'll just kind of throw it to the player who's catching it.
Unless you're really reworking the star player point system, in which I think it really need to. It was good back in the day, but I think it's the problem with star player points, from my point of view today, is that the level of what is worth one star player point worth. If we just made every star player point half as much worth, meaning like you needed to get twice as many to get the same skills, then having one for catching, having one for throwing would make sort of fine in my world. But by being the current value of a star player point, giving one to the catcher, who's probably also going to make a touchdown, is too high value. Maybe we should then, if we are moving in that direction where each star player point is worth less, but that also means that we can give them out more, say more easily, because they're not as much worth. You need more of them, but you have more avenues to get to that star player points. I think would be a really good idea, so that getting star player points would be easier to get, but you would also take more to get something for them. Because I think there's a lot of things that should be rewarded in game terms that really isn't. Yeah, I like the change about the thrown teammate, for example. That really makes sense, right, to me also. But I always felt like the current way of doing star player points, where it's like you get 3 for a touchdown, you get 2 for a casualty, and you get 1 for throwing, right? But that means basically anything other than that is useless. And it also puts a really high, how many touchdowns you're going to get a match? And a good match, you're going to get 3. Then you've been really productive, right? So that's a hard cap, more or less, on 9 star player points from touchdowns. And as an elf team, that's probably the only 9 you're going to get. Whereas if you're playing a bass side and you're playing against halflings, getting 9 star player points from casualties is going to be fairly easy. So there's also like a whole balancing issue about like because you have like the numbers are so small, that means that each time you do give star player points, it's a huge difference to whether you do it or not. If they were worth less, then they would be easily to sort of like level them out and give it for more things. Yeah, the star player point for bar is in my opinion the stupidest things I've seen in this of all changes. I'm not going to take a skill to get star player points. I'm going to take a skill because it's useful.
Yeah. I think the thing you need to remember with this though is that you've sort of got an inbuilt moderation with the redraft system now. So you've got to get under that cap plus pay for agent fees. So over time, the SPPs, they can work against you as well.
They're
An interesting point. You might see a greater acceleration with particular teams, and so that might result in them being cut earlier than perhaps you would want. I don't know.
Sort of a hard cut, sort of spring
Yeah,
flourish, and then cut
but
again.
but I agree that the fact that they've
Excuse me.
looked at star player points, and there's obviously been some announced changes with star player points might I mean that's we'll come to that point. I'll play gamer in a minute. The fact that you do have an imbalance, as Archangel said, and I can use a specific example. If you look at my Dark Elves in the Prem, if I'm not scoring, I don't get star player points, and so my team can't progress. And if you're in a very bash heavy league, for example, it doesn't have to be UKBBL. You could be playing on the tabletop. If you're playing against a load of very bashy teams and you're playing Dark Elves and you just happen to lose a couple of players, then you're starting to find it really difficult to start scoring. You can start to really find a struggle. Whereas I always feel with bash teams, even if you lose the game, you've probably got something out of that. So you might have got something like 6 or 10 star player points because you got 3 casualties and you got an MVP. So your team is moving into a direction where it is more effective. Whereas teams that don't rely on injuries have had their available star player points that they can get reduced considerably from this season, the season where they're coming to the end of.
So especially taking like Dark Elves, I think is a perfect example of that, because Dark Elves are not meant to be bashy. So you're probably going to get very limited amount of star player points from casualties. You're not going to do throws really either, because it's not really a specialty, and with the current rule set, throws is risky. So a standard Dark Elf 10 will probably not go in of the throwing path. So no star player points there either. That means you're down to that the only star player points you're going to get is touchdowns. That's a really hard limiting of development. But I think Mathimus raises a really good question, which is like, do we actually know whether the leveling system has been changed or remaining the same? I do not know for a fact whether it has been changed or remains the same. The same goes for the redraft. I think redraft more than anything, I will guarantee more or less that it will not be the way that it currently works. How it changes, I have no clue. But redraft was iteration 1 last season of Bubble, right? So I definitely think they're gonna go like, oh, there's certain things we want to change, whether that is small or big or in what direction. I don't know, but I will guarantee you, I will make a wager with anyone that there is going to be changes to the redraft.
But yeah, redraft was iteration 2, so it was season 2 Tector, I think.
Yeah, sort of.
That was brought in. Can't remember. I mean, I wasn't really playing before 2016, but all the UKBBL was in its like eternal league kind of system.
Yeah.
But obviously, the star player points are obviously a bit that isn't mentioned. The next section is new skills and traits, which I think is an ample section on the article where we can kind of almost do lots of inference and hopes. And I know that this has been covered to death by a lot of other streamers. The big one that needs its things reworked is the passing tree. I think there's a lot more things that need to be put into the passing tree, or you need to combine some of those skills. I understood if you look at it, I understood the methodology behind what they were trying to achieve. So you were trying to get 12 skills in each of the trees. So the randoming works. I think I'd just like to see some of the skills kind of put together so that they work. So it would be nice if you put like Cannoneer and Cloudburster. They could be put together as a skill. Because it's nice to have Cloudburster, but if you've got a thrower, you're probably, unless you're Team Wales, taking block dodge. Then you're taking accurate, because that's probably the most likely one you're going to use. You might then take, if you're not doing accurate, you're probably doing a passing stat increase, and most people don't even bother with accurate. But you then take accurate. Then you probably take the Cannoneer, and then because you built it very much as a passer, you probably take Cloudburster so it doesn't get intercepted. So I think the fact that because they've made it easier to intercept, you probably want to combine that.
I think
that's the one change I think I remember in mind. I'd just like to see some of the skills that are never picked.
I think this goes into a huge balancing issue of Blood Bowl, and I've heard arguments on both sides. There's people who argue that all the skills should be balanced, so that whatever skill you pick in the passing tree should be a valid option, more or less, to some extent. Like, it will never be perfect for evil, but they're meant to be as balanced as possible. And then there's people who argue that it's okay that there are skills who are not balanced, because when you're randoming, then you should have a chance of good luck and bad luck. There are people who are arguing that there are skills who should be balanced around that if it's a general skill, like, it would be useful in more cases, it should be less good. And the more you pick it, like it's just for this one thing, then it should be really good. And it becomes really quickly a question about, like, what is your design methodology about approaching how these skills are supposed to work. I think, from my point of view, there is a underlying other game mechanic you sort of have to sort of touch on before you can look at the skills and say, is the whole inducement system, which is also one of those things. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what they do about that, because I think really inducement system needs a no pricing overhaul. Not how it works, but just that there's a lot of things that should be looked at their prices, that they've been that price for a long time and they're not either that worth or they're way too cheap. Separate discussion. But the whole inducement concept sort of hinges on that skills and the cost of skills that it incurs on your team should be of equal value. Meaning that if I pick Cloudburster, it should be 20k worth of team value to me. Whereas if you picked Dodge or Block or Guard or Mighty Blow or any of the other, let's call it more generally accepted useful skills, right? Because the more you get skills like, Armbar was mentioned earlier also, like Armbar for me is a really good example of skill. Like, is it useful? Yes, I can get a use out of it, but is it worth 20k? Hell no. I would never actively pick it, because it's not worth the cost it incurs on me in inducement system wise. And I think, for example, a good example is that Cloudbuster thing. By itself, with the current changes also being implemented, by itself, it's not 20k worth. And you're never going to see it being picked. And I think
when I saw Armbar, I thought it was going to be based on a dwarf lineman rework, to be honest with you.
I think that was the idea.
They haven't changed it. Yeah,
I think that was
changed it.
No.
Yeah.
But if you look at skills like from Borumsky or whatever, how does it ever pronounced? Like, don't get me wrong, but like, what use case does that skill really have in most cases that is 20k worth? None.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand your point, and I understand your point as an experienced player. I think again, if we go back to, I think probably one of the main points of this season is to, there are other things that I think hinted that, is to bring some new players in.
Definitely.
I think changing the cost of certain skills, which while would make a balancing sense, I don't think would be as helpful for new players. If you say everything's worth 20k, nice and easy. Even if you say, you have your 4 things, which are primaries are 20, secondaries are 40, and then you have your skills, which are worth this, this, and this.
So I actually fully agree with that.
Go down the, if you obviously go down the route that Gav is saying, and I think you're seeing a lot more tournaments do this, where they're saying cap the skills. So obviously we had that done in Euro Bowl. That obviously provoked some people feeling extremely strongly about that. I have my opinions. I think capping skills is from a tournament perspective, I think is really good, and I actually like the fact that some tournaments will cap their skills, others won't.
But
I wouldn't like to see leagues do it, particularly because that would give a reliability disadvantage to particularly those teams who don't start with certain skills. So if you say, well, you can choose 4 extra block,
but
fantastic. That's dwarves all with block then. If you say, well, you can have 4 block, and we take, for example, humans, which has already been mentioned in the chat today, well, that means you can take probably both of your catchers, because you're probably now only having 2. You probably take your ogre for reliability. That's 3. And then your thrower. Okay, so all your linemen, which I know are meant to be like cannon fodder, but what the linemen are also supposed to do, if you're doing like a long-term league format, is they're supposed to hold the fort while your blitzers retrain up, and then they're supposed to die. That's the thing. Yes, I suppose you could go and get wrestle, and you could do all of those things.
But here's the problem with that, and don't get me wrong. Like I said, like I played in Warhammer since 4th edition, Fantasy, and Blood Bowl. There's always the flavor of the month. Don't get me wrong, but in 2 years there will be another way of capping skills that people prefer, and that's the new flavor of the month. And that's also one of those things that I really always fear about when there's new rules. It is, what flavor of the month are getting into the rules this time? And I think the thing that I really don't like seeing, that there's been such an influx of the flavor of the month, is this thing about positionals and this thing about skills. I think at a core level, skills need to work balanced all versus all, meaning that they should all be 20k worth. And if you pick out of your own tree, of course you're going to endure a punishment and pay twice the price. That's fair. But the whole thing about, to some level, the whole discussion about wrestle versus block, for example, like those 2 skills should be on the same level. There should be a reason to pick one. There should be a reason to pick the other one. The fact that there is a flavor of the month that block is better than wrestle, I think is correct. But that shows me that wrestle needs something to make it a tiny bit better, or block need to be reduced. And the whole conundrum for me is this thing that, and you see it in 40k and all the games also, like, oh, we'll limit this type of unit, we'll limit this type of item, we'll limit whatever. And next month we will feel something different because Games Workshop releases 2 new army books, army lists, and something new comes and threatens it. So for example, capping like block to 4, which is a super simple thing to do as a league admin, which I think is also a key thing to why it's so popular nowadays, is that it's easy to monitor, it's easy to check, and it should also balance like the worst, like 4 guards should be fine. Yeah, but the problem is that because rosters are so unevenly built and made, that 4 in this example, 4 block on certain teams is all they need, and it's plenty, and it's fine. Other teams are like, 4, what am I going to do for the rest? Because my team is reliant on that. And the mere fact that you're trying to sort of curve balance in that way is more a thing of this flavor of the month. Because there's a system where it's a buy point system where, like, you can buy skills, but you use a separate, which is just like army selection or modeling the rosters through a different means again. And you always come back to that. It's the organizers trying to sort of mimic the players' will and saying, like, back in Blood Bowl 2, for example, a good example is Claw. Claw was completely broken, overpowered, especially combined with Pylon. What did organizers do? Well, we will have to limit that. Because Games Workshop wasn't going to fix their issue, right? Because that would take too much balls to admit that you were completely screwing up the rules, but then organizers have to do it. And it's the sort of same you're seeing with this cap of 4 or whatever. It is players, organizers basically going to Games Workshop. Well, you made something that doesn't really work, so let's here have to fix it for you. And I really don't like that we are again relying on that organizers of tournaments need to fix that for us. But I don't think Games Workshop is ever going to fix that issue.
Well, I think when you come to things like this, and then we can talk about the new category, which I quite like, is I think when you're trying to do a rework or you're trying to kind of change things, I think probably the thing, what we all need to accept, I think right from the get-go, is we will never fully balance this game. There's too many variables, there's too many different teams. You currently have 48 skills, for example, plus all the traits and things like that. So we'll never balance it. But I think if you're going to go and make some different changes to the game, then probably what you're looking for is to do some buffs to the things that you probably consider weakest, and then you do that.
I think this is a perfect segue sort of into next, because I think that is fully correct. I think that expecting a game that is fully perfect balance is never going to happen. For me, it's more a question: are you breaking the game at a core level, or a surface level, or a functional level? So a core break of the game in the last edition is passing. Like, that is a core element of the game that they sort of broke, not on purpose probably, but they did it. Now they're fixing it. That is really nice. I think the skill tree, will they do this rework, I think it's going to get better than last edition. I've still seen them making some of the same mistakes, and I think that is also why this change, which is sort of segue also, is this positional discussion I'm assuming we're going to be making here shortly. At least I brought it up on from the website. Is I think they're trying to make all the rosters more streamlined and more equal footing. And in that sense, I'm actually happy to see. And I play both those two. I think both orcs and dark elves needed a nerf in certain areas, and so I think it's fine. I also think that I'm a little bit, from a game design purpose, that it's sort of like, I get why you want the numbers to be multiplications of 2, because then you can make 2 sprues and then that's it. But I think it would have been much better if you go on like, well, there's certain position you can only have 1 of, some you could have 2, some you could have 3, some you could have 5. Well, now it has to be multiplication of 2 because of this, and it's probably going to be mostly 2. And I think again we're, and this is the bitter old man coming at you again here, that it's because of Games Workshop still want to be making models more than they want to make rules. And if they wanted to make rules, they should have had different numbers. I think having said to, okay, Dark Elf Blitzes, you only need to be 3. 2 assassins, 2 throwers, that seems a bit weird. Why are we not limiting maybe to 1? Or 3, or some more? Because we're back to some issue sort of also with the skill points, is the more fixed you get in that it only has to be in certain numbers, the more less leveling you can do. Maybe Lissaman should have 5 Sauruses. Why is 6 the magical number? Why is it not 7? Why is it not 5? There's no reasoning other than
the roster thing is quite interesting, and we will get into that. Mathimus does say a good point about, we probably should, before we go really into this, and I do have, I think, well, at least when I thought about this, some good points. They've obviously got the new skill tree, which is the devious skills. I probably think, looking through this, that apart from, So the passing thing was the most needed.
Agree.
I think this is probably my favourite thing that they've done. I'm interested to see what access different teams
Yeah,
get
this is
given.
going to be key, isn't it? Access.
I think this is going to be really, really very interesting to see what devious skills are going to be, because every team, you know, at least since I've played it, and probably long before that, Dirty Player has been a general skill that everybody can pick, and you can use it. And obviously, there's been lots of debates about Dirty Player and Sneaky Git. Changing the access to that will certainly shake up the meta.
So
Absolutely.
I think this is one of the. I think this is going to have a huge impact, and but I think the problem for me is like there is so much of how to say the specifics of this change that will determine whether this is a really great thing or a really horrible thing. Because if you take a good example, so assuming goblins, which would be, let's call it a prime candidate, right? Take these primary skills as it says, right? Okay, that means that now we have given access to goblins on standard roles, dirty player, and sneaky git. For I would say this makes it really horrible to play against goblins, even more than it is so now. Do goblins need some loving and better? Yes. Do we need to see more fouling? Probably not, in my opinion. So in that sense, it's all like, is devious going to be a thing that dark elves can do? Because like fluff wise, dark elves are quite devious, but would it be balancing wise maybe a good idea? Maybe not. How exactly is that dirty git gonna work? Is sneaky git and dirty play gonna remain the same, or RQ call and all that? Like I said, like there's so many things for this that potentially is great. I also like that there's more skill categories, though I'm concerned if we're gonna have 12 new devious skills and that conundrum. That's a separate issue. So
I do think you're right. I think we could probably go into, so this would be kind of like my hopes now. I think
yeah.
if you go through certain teams, I think there are probably some players that kind of stand out that would have devious skills, perhaps as more of a primary option. I think there's possibly something on some of the chaos rosters that you could probably go, well, thematically that works like it. I'm not talking about a balance thing, because I also think a part of the game is that everything also, that one of the draws of it is it feels thematic to me, and
Yeah.
I don't want my Blood Bowl to just feel like chess.
No.
So I do want the thematics to come out. I think Dark Elf Assassins, I think, will almost certainly have access to devious skills on primary.
But
And
for
I think probably you would look at those ones in as kind of a mold. You go, well, those ones you probably are gonna give it. Do they give elves devious skills just as general standard? Because I mean they've basically have access to dirty player sneaky gear anyway.
so I think
That's kind of been their only reliable way of removing things.
well, if you look at it from a thematic point of view, right, it would sort of make sense to, at least from my point of view, that high elf would refuse to do this. So they should be not even allowed to have access to this skills. Like they shouldn't be even secondary. They shouldn't have allowed. They refuse to play the game that way. Maybe say something like Bretonia, Nobles, maybe feel the same. I don't know that fluff enough to say that it's completely out of the realm. They would maybe some of the players, etc. Should it be fairly accessible for Dark Elves? I definitely think so, because that fits with the whole theme and everything. But as much as I also love themes, there is a question also of balance. And the problem that this is probably my biggest concern with this is having access to mutations as a skill tree is a huge bonus for any race that have that, and then it's one of the things that I think is also one of the things that really should be addressed. That having access to mutations is just a big perk compared to the other trees. And the other trees, like if you're playing humans, you just don't get mutation. You're just F from the start in certain ways, because there's many great skills on the mutation skills, right? Does devious skills end up sort of being in the same position where it's like, you don't get access? Oh, you're just screwed. Yeah. high elf, just take that and go home and like cry about that too, because you're not going to get mutations either. You're not going to get devious, but you get nothing in return really. And that comes back to the balancing. And I think as much as this is not going to be chess, and I fully agree, I think that there needs to also be an eye towards like, is this just also going to be like just a new, oh, you have devious axis. That's going to be a big perk. Sorry for talking over you, LittleWing.
It's okay. I just, on a different angle to this, I was thinking about this, and I think this is also going to have maybe an unforeseen effect in that randoming is going to become more powerful, because it seems to me that the devious category has cleaned out a lot of the skills that maybe you don't want from, say, general or strength. I'm thinking pile driver. I don't know whether armbar goes in there as well, maybe. So you might get more value for your random actually on your linos and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's
definitely fits in our kind of inference. Obviously, we don't know, and the fact that they've taken some skills out of devious skills, it implies one of two things. I think it implies one of two things. Either they've managed to find 12 skills that fit into devious, and then the ones they've taken out they'll replace, so everything will be, you know, 12, or they will go, well, actually, we're going to reduce everything to, I don't know, 8.
Yeah.
And then they're going to have like D8.
I was funny enough thinking the D8 too.
That would probably still work, because you would have 6 skill trees. 6 lots of 8 is 48. We currently have 12 sets of 5. Are we 12 sets of 5? We got 5 or 4 trees.
Just a crazy idea. They should do skill trees with 8 skills, and then when you want to random, you pick 2 skills trees and you roll a d16, and you get one of those from one of those 2 skill trees.
That's a good idea.
Would love to see that, but it's not going to happen.
This is all kind of
wishful thinking here.
Yeah,
hypothetical stuff.
But
it's
just
interesting to look at the bits of, and just an example before you say your point, is that they've clearly identified, I think, that second sentence, I think, shows that they have worked very hard to consider the skills that they think aren't really doing much and tried to buff them to bring them up. Whether that will change things, we don't know. So Monstrous Mouth now allows a player to perform a chomp special action. I don't know what that chomp special action is, but Monstrous Mouth was useful, but was it always taken by players? What does that chomp special action allow you to do? Is that like a stab action? But clearly, they've looked at skills and gone, that is a low pick skill. We need to do something to make it perhaps more appealing. I think shadowing for a lot of teams has perhaps become more appealing. You know, the humans who are kind of like, oh, well, I really need a dodge here, and I can do it on a 3+ because I've got a reroll in the bank. It's only a 1 in 9 that I'm going to fail it, so I'll just throw the reroll. Oh, hang on a minute, there's a 50% chance I have to go and do that again.
Yeah.
So I think the change to shadowing is quite a nice one. It's actually made shadowing much more of a, you know, you obviously have your tier 1 skills that you're going to pick first. So, you know, your guards, your blocks, your wrestles, your stand firms, perhaps, and then you get into kind of like that group 2. So after you've kind of got your core skills, I wouldn't go as far to say as well. I would go as far to say that I think you would see shadowing on some players if you've got access to it, and obviously it's going to be in the devious skills.
So if we go back to
access,
we talked about you mentioned assassins probably would have access to devious skills, would sort of make sense because it has shadowing, and that would make sort of sense, right? And it also goes very well with I think removing the complexity of shadowing, also making it so that even like slower players get more out of it. So the current version is like, oh, I got movement 5. What do I need shadowing for? It's never gonna work for me anyway. Oh, you got movement 9. Oh, it's gonna work more or less every time. Like, and I think the 4+ straight in that way, I think it's a huge improvement. I think I would have liked to see maybe that it started on 3+, and then if you do twice in the same turn, or at least a limiting on it, that because
That's
even
quite a nice idea. Like minusing one each time you
exactly.
successfully
So,
shadow.
because
Quite cool. Yeah.
because like even 1 in 8 chance right now that you will be following 3 squares. That's pretty. 25% chance of following 2 squares. That's a lot. I think in that sense, details. But assuming that there's not a limit that you can only do triggering of shadowing once per turn. I think they might have actually made it too good. I'm almost happy to say that because shadowing did increase need a buff.
Or
I think
do you know what I was going to say this. I'm just looking at the chat. Imagine shadowing on something like a tree, like with low movement. Just stick shadowing on a tree, and you could get that tree following everything around, couldn't you?
So assuming it casts
Basically up trees to like movement 5, like 1 in 8 times. That's pretty cool.
There's a good chance that the cast dwarves is going to be devious, right? Because they are not going to play by the rules. So you could see shadowing chaos dwarves.
Miners, yeah, everywhere.
Because that's going to be fun.
Yeah,
But
armbar shadowing, lovely.
yes, but my concern is also, as much as I love to see that they have sort of addressed the elephant in the room, which is that the skills are not balanced currently. I fully agree, and I'm really happy to see that. I'm still also really concerned with that they think that armbar is fixed by adding star player points. Like it's like, have you no clue about how to balancing things? And it's like, on one hand, they do the fixing. From my interpretation of how Shadow is going to work, I think they fixed it. That's really great. And then I look at what they did to armbar and go like, have you no clue at how to fix things, because giving me star player points for something that is useless isn't going to make me pick it.
No, I mean it might have been targeted at something like OWA.
Yeah.
Just to give them something.
Yeah, I think in all fairness, it would have been much better. Like I think we talked about this also on stream. Like I would rather have them see like it was almost a guarantee that you stunned them, but you couldn't do much more than stun. But you were almost guaranteed that you stunned them, meaning that it was be you would therefore have a greater use for it in at least some cases, but you could then thereby balancing it. I think the let's just copy Mighty Blow. That seems fine. Let's go with that. It's like, no, like you dig a little deeper, do a little bit more game design and make it actually function, right? I think just this is me conspiracying, right? But there is a token of the new tokens. There is a chump token, isn't there?
Yes, there is. Yeah.
Yes, which I think is sort of interesting. So we are now we're fixing Monstrous Mouth, which I like. It needed a buff. It gets a chump special action, which is great. But then we are sort of, in my opinion, conflicting with the idea of that we want to streamline everything and make it more similar. So Hypnotic Gaze is now dazed, and a lot of other things are dazed. But now let's make a special attack that one skill has, make a special rule for that, and a special token for that. That is the opposite direction. That is unique. Don't stay to the same game design, please. Can I would almost rather have that it was a bad Hypnotic Gaze, and could use the same rules, could have rolled into everything else and be streamlined in that way. Then let's make a whole new attack with whole new rules with a whole new token. Stop doing that.
I think you're being very miserable there.
I'm a bitter old man.
But I would probably say I'm going to find myself, and I'm going to jump to GW's defense, I think, in the next bit, which may go down like a lead balloon. But I don't think you'll see the special actions replaced with like the same move. I just think it's the outcome that has been simplified. So Hypnotic Gaze,
Yeah.
really stupid. Bonehead, they haven't been replaced. It's
No.
just the outcome has been simplified.
No. Then I wasn't clear. Sorry. Then I wasn't clear. I fully understand that all those mechanics now feed into the same condition. But what I'm more saying is here, then we now have one skill that has one attack that has a unique condition because there's apparently a token for it. There needs to be a specific token for this attack. So we have taken all these other rules and skills and let them into this distracted, I think it's called, right? That is really great. I love that. It's one term. It's like marked. Marked is a term that is unique, that is used many places. Great. What is the opposite of doing that? Let's make one skill that has one specific attack, that has one specific condition. It's like, stop doing that, Games Workshop. Yeah, don't get me started on the
We
whole
won't talk
kickoff.
about dodgy snack. Just let's move on from that. So now we go into the roster changes. If you don't mind, I'd like to start because I'd like to be the witness for the defense here. I think.
It's a shame we have to start there.
So, well, no, I think we obviously know that GW can be quite unpopular sometimes with kind of the things that they do, and so I'm not going to say that I necessarily think it's right, but I can see the reason in which they make it. Do you want to put up the kind of team changes, the team roster changes bit, so we can kind of put that up there?
Hopefully, it should be on there now in full.
Obviously,
view.
it's a little bit delayed. I've got a very small one by the tokens,
Oh,
but we can work with that, I suppose. If you have a look at the Twitch, you'll see what I mean. So you have a new season. You want to rework some of the teams, but you have 30, or I think we've got 30 teams at the moment. So you basically you have a choice. So you have a problem with the fact that when you're trying to get people into the game, you have mistakenly, I think, produced a box that does not produce all the things that you need, or better or worse. And I think that's an annoyance from a previous edition. So they've basically got two ways, I think, to fix that mistake, because it is a mistake, right? So you can either do option one, which is basically redesign all the molds, and you then produce new boxes which have the new teams in, the new molds. Everyone can then go and get the new molds and things, and then everyone's happy because they get everything that they want in a box. Here's why I think that they're not going to do that. One, this is a big company, and we are a reasonably small part of their business. And as you've already mentioned before, Games Workshop's primary focus is selling us models, not selling us a game that works. That's, I think, point number one. So the fact that you then have to go and change all the molds, and the fact that you've probably got a load of players who, if they've already got the teams, why would you go and buy a new one? Unless there was some reason as to why you needed to do it. So if you were going to change the molds, you probably need to change the rosters, which means that would force everybody to buy the new models. So that's one easy way to annoy almost everybody overnight, is go, we're about to invalidate everyone's roster, and we're going to do new molds, new rosters for everybody, and you have to go and get everything. That is just absolutely never going to happen. So what's probably the easiest thing to do is we go, well, I suppose we could do it one at a time, but then obviously you've got a balancing issue where you've taken away, I don't know, you put some extra things in the box for this team, to kind of make people buy the new box, but maybe that's not balanced with the old teams. So then you've got people moaning about the fact that the teams aren't all balanced. So what's the easiest thing to do? Well, I'll tell you what we'll do is we'll keep all the boxes the same. We'll rework the rules so that the boxes that we currently sell, which are probably selling fine, can just be bought. And this will then encourage new players to come into the game because they can buy a single box, £34, £35, and they're into the game. So I think no matter what you think about team roster changes, and hopefully I have explained that eloquently enough with about 5 minutes thinking of what I wanted to say at this point.
So,
I hope that at least gives I think, a rational argument
I,
as to why you would
I think
change things in the way that you have.
good. So I think you are very close to being of the same opinion that I have. I actually have been to Games Workshop headquarters. I have actually been so, and one of the things they mentioned is the cost of a mold. I'm not allowed to tell you the number, but let's just put it this way: the molds that are used for casting these plastic things in are extremely expensive. Meaning that if you want to change the mold for small tweaks or something like that, it ain't gonna happen. And don't get me wrong, but there's not being sold enough Blood Bowl miniatures that it justifies the Games Workshop going out and creating new molds for the team. So, since we didn't create the molds originally to fit with the current rosters, let's force the rosters to fit the molds, because that is definitely cheaper. Let's force the game to fit with the molds that we created that was incorrect to begin with. That is what has happened. That's I will more or less eat my hat on that, because the most expensive thing for Games Workshop is to change those molds. The other thing that I think, which is that then it has to fix that. And the other thing is also, because the molds are so expensive, it is cheaper to have that one mold that you can print twice, instead of having, which was much more common in the old days, that you had like 16 unique models. Now you have 8 models times 2. When it was really bad, Games Workshop did 16 models of exactly the same in the old boxes, for those who are old enough to remember that, because then there was one mold and we could just endlessly replicate it. There's so many design decisions that Games Workshop does that is based around the cost of molds. And that is also why you see, like, if I'm going to change here to the picture, I think it's the new mummy set, right? It's funny how there's duplicates of all like the players of 2, because it's it's one mold replicated twice. And that's also why all positions needs to be multiplications of 2, because then we can use the same mold. So I'm also old enough to have played Blood Bowl back when the box came with a cutout that you could put into sort of a brick and put it on the board, because Ogre was, no one had an Ogre model. Like, it was a cardboard piece that you put on the table. Like, we've seen the tokens, they could definitely make an Ogre for humans teams token, put it into the human team, and you could actually have all the blitzers, all the positionals, all the linos, and the Ogre in one box. It would just be a token, though. It wouldn't be a full model. It would just be a token. But then Games were missing out on money. So let's not do that. And I think, like, for better and worse, loving Games Work, and I'm going to still be playing this game. I'm not encouraging anyone to stop playing, but it is driven by the cost of molds. It's not driven by game design. It's not done for balance. It's done because the cost of a mold is too high.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I think Phil's point makes sense as well. Is
Definitely.
that as the consumer, we've now got a one box set, and that works for both.
So I would have, like in a perfect world, Games Workshop said, like, hey, okay, let's make new molds. Not going to happen, but let's be nice and say that we got. Then I would have loved to see that they had basically a box you could buy of humans, and in that box there was all the positionals, all the linos, even an Ogre, because clearly, like, if we can do a mummy in small scale, we can also do an Ogre in a small scale, and then put that Ogre in. I know that they would need to basically redo all the team's molds and all that to do so. But and I understand, and I fully agree with Phil on that reasoning why they're not doing it, because it's too time consuming and it will cost too many money. But I think that would have been the right decision. But again, money talks,
Yeah, so I think they will obviously have a plan for this game, and I think as long as Blood Bowl keeps selling, they will obviously keep supporting it, because again, what do they care about? We are all consumers. We love this game,
yeah,
but if it, and we've obviously shown that in a age where the game wasn't supported, you can still run a community game, and third parties would step in if Games Workshop, I think, ever decided to kind of go, well, no, we won't do anything with it. I suspect you probably still would be able to do something.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think probably, and this is pure speculation, what I think their long-term plan would be is they're currently running out of teams, of old teams, that they don't have to do a lot of thinking about new rules for. So we've got High Elves. They've obviously produced 2 new teams, but they've obviously got to keep producing things to sell. So what's the best way to do that? Well, if they were to just say, okay, what's in the box now is what's in the team. What you've just done is you've just created probably 24 teams that you could rework at some point and sell a new tasty box with all of the models in. But you can't do that all at once. You have to do that in stages.
Yeah.
So I think that's what you'll find they will do, is you will find teams reworked throughout this season so that they do have a new mold, but we are at least encouraged to buy them. So whether that is new positionals, or a new big guy, or whatever it comes in the box, they've got to give us a reason to buy the thing. And
Definitely.
so what's the thing they've got to do to buy the thing? Well, if they're going to invest in the molds, they've got to make it so that the team has to be purchasable. They can't go, well, we're gonna make a new Dark Elf mold, and it's gonna have 4 blitzers in, and it's gonna have 2 Witch Elves, and it's gonna have 6 linemen and 2 runners.
Assassins.
And I suspect a lot of the teams that they're doing, they don't actually need to make new molds for anyway, because I think for some of their later release teams, they've got things right. And I think I'm talking about Old World Alliance. I think Dwarves are probably are fine as they are. The Necro box I think is fine. The Norse box I think is fine.
But
there are definitely teams that you wouldn't need to do a remold of.
as much as
I'm not sure with some of the teams. I think Humans is a really good example. I don't think no matter what you give that team, you can't replace losing 2 movement 7 block blitzers with strength access. With anything you rework onto a lineman,
I
there's
think
nothing you can do to replace that.
no, and I also think like so the thing that I find interesting is as much as I agree with you that what they're going to want to do is sell new boxes. But the funny thing is, like, it's sort of been used as a argument to have 2 of each positional, and then it's funny how, like, you're looking at the mummy team here, right? That there's 4 mummies, so clearly doing 4 positional is still possible in the new designs. So why is it that we have to cut? That's a separate issue, but it's just couldn't. The thing that I find is, I really don't like that the design is being driven by that sort of thinking. That the thing that I would really like to much more see is, like, you have right now, and it's been quite a long time issue with Blood Bowl rosters. It's like you get all the positionals, you get linos for the rest, and that's basically how you build the teams. There's a few teams like Dark Elves where it's like, oh, you can mix and max a little bit. But there's a lot of teams where it's basically you're going to buy the 6 hours, you're going to buy the Crocs, and you're going to buy the Skinks for the rest, right? That's basically it. Or you got an Orc team. That's 4 big guns, that's 4 blitzers, maybe a thrower, but then some linos, maybe some random stuff on top of that. And I would much rather see that positional got so expensive and so, how to say, niche, that it was like, well, I don't want those because that doesn't fit with my playing style. Then it's what is going to be. Now the driving factor is we're going to have to sell boxes. And so we want you to buy these boxes because they have exactly what you need then in them. And that means that we're going to move even more towards Lissaman team, meaning that there's going to be a preset list of what players you want. And that, I think, is really a bit the bigger problem underneath this, is that there's going to be like this is the thing to buy because there is all the things you need, and that's the standard list. Now it's not a question of what players you have on your team, it's going to be what skills do you give them, and that's even limiting more the strategies that you can play with. That I think is sad. That's my bigger concern. Whether Dark Elves have 4 blitzers or 2 blitzes, don't get me wrong, it'll probably work either way. But humans, maybe a little bit less so. But overall, that's not so big. The bigger problem for me is that if we and that seems what we're going towards is, of course, you're going to get the 2 blitzes, you're going to get the 2 witches, you're going to get the 2 assassins, you're going to get the 2 runners, because why not? It's the optimum build. Go for it. Why shouldn't I? And it's all in the box. So I'm going to buy it. That I fear.
Go on, LittleWing. You haven't given your opinion on this thing. You might as well tell us what you think.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, my view on Blood. I mean, my view on this is a larger view on Blood Bowl, in that it's an imperfect game. You're going to get new seasons, new editions coming out every 2, 3, 4 years, and so I really just think that whilst you're getting these editions, it's giving you a chance to form a new meta and then move on to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
So, from my point of view, being the sort of sunny disposition, I'm just happy. I'm happy to play it, to work it out, and to see what goes. And my views on it are that simple, really. That's not very exciting, but that's how I feel about this. And so, whatever they offer up, maybe I am the perfect consumer, I will gobble down.
I think if I separate one thing that I'm really agreeing with you and see the same thing. Did Blood Bowl need a shakeup of its rules? Yes. It was way overdue that we needed a shakeup. That part of all the changes that is coming, like the fact that we're getting changes, was so needed. I'm so happy about that. I'm still going to be the grumpy old man and nitpick about what details we're going to get, but am I still happy that we are getting new stuff, new rules, new things? Absolutely. Am I going to be the grumpy old man still nitpicking at the details of these changes? Yes, I'm going to be that, because I'm bitter old man. That's why. But the overall sunlight in that fact that we're going to get new stuff and we're going to get a new meta, is Dark Elves going to work in a really different way without 4 blitzers? Hell yes. Is that going to be good? Very much so. Is that maybe going to make Dark Elves not playable? Maybe. But it will definitely make it different, and it will make it interesting, at least for a while.
Yeah. And then and then you'll get a new edition.
Eventually.
And the merry-go-round starts again, you know.
I mean, I was just going to give an example of that. This game is still very popular, and people will consume what they have. One of the shops that I play at, I play at 2 places tabletop, one in Norwich and one in Woodbridge. So the Woodbridge League have 22 pre-orders of the 3rd season box.
Of course.
But now you replicate that around the country.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's a lot.
But you tell.
And so they will always do these new editions. And I'm really glad they do, because it does change the meta.
So being
but I wouldn't be. I think this is I think what I was trying to get at with the changes to the rosters is, I think that this is a temporary thing, because I think what they'll do is it will just underpower certain things, which I think have been part of the meta. I think you're going to see Dark Elves, I think, fall to maybe middle tier, because as I said in the UKBBL chat, replacing 2 blitzers with 2 hit and run assassins, even in the meta that I think we're in, I don't think quite cuts the mustard. We don't know, Bron, if dwarves have changed. I highly doubt it.
They need it. So it's the only one who plays.
But I think the things that we know, I was going to go to Blood Bowl tactics and kind of going, this is what's in the box. I also think I have said about, this is a new player entry thing. What's in the box is what you will buy. But let's face it, no one's ever going and buying 1 box only, because you always need more linemen, regardless of what you play. So you're probably going to be going and buying 2 boxes, or you're going to be going halvesies with another person who wants the spare lineman in another box. So Amazons kind of will remain unchanged, I think. Black Orcs, I think, will remain unchanged. Chaos Chosen will remain unchanged. Chaos Dwarf, I think, will remain unchanged. I'm not sure kind of what they'll do with the Renegades, because I think the Renegades are a special pact. But I think, wasn't there an early announcement that those kind of things will, or was that rumor they would disappear? Dark Elves,
I've heard rumors about them disappearing. I've also heard them sort of been refuted slightly. I think they're going to remain, but I think the rosters, because I've seen somewhere that the rosters would be changed more than they would be removed.
Dark Elves, obviously, we know are going to get. I'm going to call it a nerf. They're going to get nerfed. Dwarves will remain the same. Elven Union will get nerfed because they lose 2 catches. Goblins will remain the same. I think Halflings will remain the same. Obviously, High Elves, we know it's not out yet, but I think probably it would be. There has been some thing on chats is that there's some teams that don't have multiples of 2, so it might be a case of the High Elves do still get 4 catches. I'm just not kind of sure of kind of where they fit that on the sprues. If you're giving 4 catches, 2 throwers, 2 blitzers, 8, you're probably doing 6 linemen, so you'd need to do something would need to be in increments of 3. You probably could do it, but I don't see if the other elf teams have basically gone down to essentially almost like a 2-2 and 2. I think it would be highly unusual for High Elves to kind of keep all 4 catches. Humans been nerfed because they'll lose 2 catches and they'll also lose 2 blitzers. It'd be interesting to see them in the box whether they get the halflings put in, so they're actually printed like that, because humans obviously were one of the original molds, and whether they'll actually redo molds for humans, I don't know. Yeah. But losing access to halflings on humans would be quite a big.
I don't think think they will move, especially now that you get star player points for throwing.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going though by the everything should be in the box argument,
it's not
lose the access to halflings.
I think they're still going to be. I think they even mentioned for Dark Elves Assassins, which is, I think it's a little bit weird, but they said like ogres and other like unique sort of stuff will still be separate sold, and I think halflings might be one of those things.
Okay, that kind of makes sense. Nobilities will kind of stay. I think nobility stays the same. Again, chats can all correct me. Lizard men will stay the same. That they've kind of got all they need. Corn's an interesting one. So you'll go down to 2 corn gores. They won't have 4 of those anymore. I think that's again a nerf for corn.
Probably, but not a huge
one. It's 2 players that are less likely to die. That's kind of how I look at it.
True.
And that actually I think does make a big difference. So I'd be interested to see what they do with corn.
Yeah. Nurgle is going to be raised.
Necro are fine. Norse are fine. I think Nurgle again would go down to 2 pestigores.
Definitely.
They've got 4 ogres they spoke about in the article. Old World are fine. Orcs take a big hit in the fact that they lose 2 big uns, and they lose 2 blitzers. But you notice, I think the 2 that I think are probably the ones we've spoken about, they're all the earliest teams that were in the original 2016 rule sets. They were some of the earliest molds to be released. If you're going to look to kind of remodel those teams, those are the ones that I'd be kind of going to. Skaven, obviously, they've kind of spoken about what they'll do with Skaven. I'm not sure what I prefer, 4 gutter runners or 2 gutter runners and then 2 movement 8 blitzers with strip ball.
4 gutter runners in a day of the week.
I think my point about what I would prefer to play, I'm not wild about playing 2 movement 8 strip ball blitzers with armor 9.
No.
Because at least I can kill the gutter runners. We're obviously going to get the Khemri. The undead, I think, remain the same.
Yeah, they get to keep the 4 mummies.
Underworld remains, I think, remain the same. Vampires obviously we just had release, so they'll remain the same. Wood Elves lose 2 catchers. So I think the only teams that really get hit are Dark Elves, Elven Union, Humans, Orcs, Skaven, and I don't necessarily think I think it is a nerf, but I think it's a smaller nerf than I think we probably think. And Wood Elves.
I think
Hardcore.
I'm hoping. It seems like at least with Skaven they're trying to sort of say let's mitigate a little bit of the reduction in gutter runners. I think they're gonna do a little bit with the Dark Elves. I see it as a deliberate nerf of these races, except for humans and pro elves, where I think they're gonna do more to compensate. Full on, because orcs definitely needed a nerf, dark elves needed a nerf, and many of the other lists even also needed in the way a nerf. So I think you're gonna see you like getting strip ball on and one more movement is nice, but it's not the same. And I think they'll still be fine afterwards. They will be different, but game will still be functional. They will not be as functional, but they'll be functional. Humans are going to take a huge nerf. I don't think they're going to be unplayable. I think a way they could balance this out is removing, again, the animosity, and then maybe also making the throwing a little bit better, or at least giving the thrower movement 6 or something like that. Really. Anyways, there's lots of ways of tweaking small things, and I think again, like the devil's in the detail. The only like small plea, and I want to be talking about models and that sort of thing, and I just wanted to mention this. Like the picture of the undead team is still up, and the sort of goes same for the new bred team is. I think it's really a shame that they don't do the models so that it's much clearer what position they're in. I think the blandness of how the skeletons look compared to each other, the blandness of how the Brits looks compared to each other, the blandness of, say, something like Pro Elves or something, it's really hard to tell the models apart. I think that's really a shame that at least in the old days, it seemed much more that you could tell the different positional players from just the way that the models looked much easier. I think it gets much more muddled nowadays because it seems to be much more same, which I think is a sort of shame. Like the old days, the catcher were like having no armor. They had a huge glove. You were not in doubt that this was the catcher at any point, right? And the blitzer was much more feathers and a big armor and poor little lineman standing next to him. You were never in doubt. Like if I look at this, I seem to have to lost the Brit picture, so this is the best you'll have to do with here. Is I have a really hard time telling which of those if I'm not sitting like 5 centimeters away from the table and looking at it like the detail is just like, oh, it's Brit people. Yeah, sure. But which one is which? Good luck in seeing that.
Just interesting. I went onto the NAF website just to have a little look at the 2025 statistics for the teams that have got impacted.
Yeah.
So of the top 5, Elven Union and Dark Elf sit 3rd and 4th. They have win percentages of 55.06 and 54.34% respectively.
Yeah.
So you could probably argue that those two getting nerfed is a definite nod towards changing meta. However, if you start to then go down the list, the lowest of those that gets changed, and I mean I know that they're meant to be not a tournament team anyway, which is Khorne. They've got a win rate of 45.97. They're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th from bottom. So if you were looking to do some like balancing, taking stuff off Khorne and not compensating would be insanity. I don't think there are many competitive Khorne rosters that don't run like a 4-4 and 4.
So
the balancing of that might well be that if they get devious, and it might be a sort of meta change like that. But we'll have to wait and see.
That's true. You kind of obviously then looking at because they then need stacking in order to be able to do it. So if it, obviously the only thing that much like Warhammer, 40k, the only thing they've got to kind of base the meta on is tournament
Yeah,
results. That's the
but
only thing they've got to use, rather than they don't collate what happens in
but
leagues,
but
and
then but then
even things like Blood Bowl 3, that their World Championships are more NAF style tournament rosters
but but
rather than
but
a
then you
progression.
exactly get confirmation bias. That is exactly not what you're supposed to do. Because the whole problem here is, first of all, you're looking at NAF style, which is perfectly fine, but that is a very specific way of playing Blood Bowl.
Correct.
There's
Yes.
no progression or anything. So all that sort of aspects of the game, you completely ignore it. Cool. Let's ignore that. The next thing is NAF has always more or less that they are applying restrictions on top of whatever Games Workshop is having. So what you're getting a reflection of is not how the places compare, but how they compare in a NAF style restriction system. And this is what you get confirmation bias. And this is where, so if you take that list, and I without having seen it, I guarantee you the dwarves are at the bottom. I mean, by that logic,
Dwarves are actually, I would probably say they're top of the bottom third.
so
Lizard
so
men actually are
so
slightly below
below
them, and then you've got orcs below.
below the middle is right, correct, right? Is that fair to say? And that would mean that they should be buffed. Now let's ask players, anyone in chat or here, should dwarves be buffed? No. Let's agree on that. So clearly, this is not a good system for using or assessing how good a team is doing. And in that sense, you have exactly the problem of what I'm seeing here is that we have done that. We have used the NAF style as the golden light of what is good and what is bad and what is broken and what needs to be fixed. So you're confirming that bias in the system yet again. And that's the problem. That's bad game design, but that's a separate issue. Because that means that, of course, and so if you want to go to a tournament in a NAF style, don't bring dwarves, don't bring orcs, because people don't like playing against them, so they will be unnecessarily nerfed. People think it's much more nice to play against dark elves and pro elves and wood elves because they only play the ball, they don't bash your team. So that leaves you with a better feeling afterwards, hence they're not being sanctioned so hard. This is confirmation bias at its worst. And you can see it in the World Cup rules, you can see it in many other systems, for better and worse, that confirmation bias for players of how they want to play the game and how they feel like it should be played, and then how they then implement that in the style of restrictions. And that's why you will never see dwarves be in their current shape, and they should be reworked for many other reasons. But the current issue with dwarves is that it never leaves the opponent with a good feeling, so they're gonna get nerfed. They're gonna get nerfed more than need to.
I think lots of people were calling for dwarves to be nerfed in the last one. They never were. I don't think they were. In fact, I think they did better out of the last one. I take your point about. I think you take the point about sort of this is one thing,
Yeah,
but I think that I what I was trying to do is to try and illustrate a point. Is we obviously know from experience of playing in league, and I actually think there's a that I mean, we've obviously got Gav on here as Team Wales, who can hopefully kind of give me a bit of support on this. Is so yes, NAF have a certain range, but if we look at the calendar, and we look at actually the variety of different rule sets that I think are out there, you've got some that have the mega stars allowed, some that don't. Some run 1,000 TV, like 2 skills. Others run more kind of like NAF championship style, 1150, 6, 7, 8 skills, something like that. I think my point is that if you look at Corn, and every team should have its kind of natural place. I think Dwarves' natural place is meant to be where it is. It's meant to be around the middle. They're not meant to be brilliant. They're not meant to be great. What they're meant to do is they're meant to be the rock to certain scissor races. And I think if you look at that and you go, so what you've done is you've not moved anything else. but you've taken things away from a certain race. If you wanted to kind of keep things as it is, as if you wanted to keep it as it is, if you take things away from a team, unless you want to make them not saying taking away 2 Corngors makes them unplayable, but there's not a lot of places left for Corn to go apart from below the below the stunties, who, by the way, we might have just discovered have got like sneaky getting dirty player on primaries, and they'll all be taking it.
But
'Cause why not?
but that goes into a much bigger discussion about meta and all that sort of thing. Because what you're sort of touching also is like there is a unwritten assumption and acceptance of that Stunty teams are just not as competitive as the other races, right? Like there's an underlying assumption at the basis, like it's fine. Stunties are not competitive compared to the others. That's fine, and they don't need to be technically, but that's an assumption that is. And I think for this goes into Games Workshop's sort of design philosophy. I don't think Corn was ever meant to be competitive. I don't think they think Corn should be competitive. I don't think they have a problem with it not being competitive. You and I, as players, might have a problem with that thing, but I don't think Games Workshop have. And I think therein also lies a huge discrepancy about like how is this meant to work at the end of the day. And if going to your point about like there's different types of tournaments, I love the fact that, and I will hope that that stays that like that forever. But you can also see it's sort of like a popularity contest, and you can also thereby actually see like, so if back in the day when Claw was sort of new before Blood Bowl 2 and everything, like there was a lot of tournaments we just banned it outright because that was the popular opinion back then. Right, as that changed, more tournaments allowed it, and more allowed it. Then some of them tweaked it, and some so again like this flavor of the month thing, right? And so by going into that sort of like say hit list of what type of plays, like how many tournaments have 2,000 team value rosters? I guarantee you there's not going to be a lot of them. I'm not sure you can find one actually just go that far. So that also shows you that there seems to be certain things about the game that breaks at certain points. Is that an issue? Well, it's not more issue than halflings not being competitive. So is that necessarily an issue? Well, it might be some players, and it might not be. But that's.
And I don't think it is for me. I mean, I mean, to reference another game, if you go on to say you want to play FIFA or something, and you go on there and you pick a team from the 3rd division of, I don't know, some lower league in Europe, Corn, maybe even Dwarfs, Stunties, they give you a harder version of the game to play, and that's fine. That's how it should be, right?
I fully agree, but then I think there should be some transparency about it. Then I think actually Games Workshop should be honest and saying like, sure, they're in there, you can play them. Just know that you're going to do it at a disadvantage. Let's be fair. I have no problem with that. I have no problem with Stunties being a let's call it not competitive, but then let's at least be transparent and honest about it. And not and I think therein lies sort of the catch-22 for me, is that on one hand they want to present it as if it's all competitive, it's all equal, all is good, and on the other hand it's like, no, there's clearly things here that are so broken out of shape that it's not even close to being as good as the other teams. Be
I
honest.
think just my main thing about again, what I don't mind is you changing kind of the number of positionals. Wood elves run perfectly fine with 2 war dancers, 2 catchers, the rest linemen, and you might take the tree. They run perfectly fine like that. I
Yeah.
think that the thing that I would just be worried about is, do you turn them from reasonably very competitive at certain TVs and then moderately competitive at others to broken?
I
That's
think I
that's
think
that's my concern, because what you're doing is you've reworked a series of rosters, because you have reworked a series of rosters. You have changed certain rosters to fit your current molds, to fit your box.
yeah.
Um, but because some of them are older than others, are you going to make that team just not fun?
And I think they're touching on what I think is the biggest issue, and that was sort of I was trying to at least formulate it in a way, but you're sort of saying the same thing, at least in a different way from what I'm hearing, is the problem I see by reducing the positionals is also you are reducing the number of ways that I can build my team. So in a perfect world, I would love to see that I could play, let's say, take humans as an example. I could play a human team with 6 blitzers, 2 catchers, no throwers, no ogre, and it would be a valid strategy. I could also make one with 2 blitzers, 6 catchers, and 2 throwers. It would also be a valid strategy. I would have enough positionals to pick and choose from that I could actually make different, really different lists of humans by further limiting than last season of Bubble. By reducing the number of positions, I get even less options of building a list from. Now, I like if I'm going to play Dark Elf, of course I'm going to take 2 blitzes because I need to take that. I'm going to need to take 2 witches because they have to sort of compensate for those 2 missing blitzes, and I'm still going to have to take then a runner or an assassin, right? And still that. And it's like, yeah, but there isn't a different build. There isn't a 4 witches build or a 4 blitzers build and no witches. I would rather see them go like, oh, you can have 1 to 6. That's maybe too much. 1 to 5 witches and blitzers and runners, maybe, or whatever, combined. That's your limit. Because that makes, so if I'm picking a witch and I want 2 of them because I really like them, I'm only going to get 3 blitzes. That's a sacrifice. Now I really like my blitzers. I can pick 5 blitzers, or let's say 4 is the cap of those 2. But by having such a fixed number on, you get 2 of those, you get 2 of those, you get 2 of those. It's like, what different build of this roster is there then? We're just talking about which skills to pick because there's this roster to pick from. That I don't like. It's more pigeonholing the lists in themselves because there's not options. Like it goes back to, just to really put it on a nice edge here. Like I said, like there is one build for a Lizardman roster. You're gonna take maximum of Skink, Sauruses, and Croxicos, of course, because that's all your options you have. It's not like, okay, if I want to take with the new improved chameleon skinks, they might become an option. Well, if you want a chameleon skink, you're going to have to say you can't have a Croxico. Croxicos and chameleon skinks do not want to play together. Oh, okay. The new chameleon skink got really good. They got more movement. They got more better shadow, or whatever new things we gave them. Then it becomes an option. Do I want the actions to the chameleon skinks, or do I want the access to the Croxico? By making everything fixed 0 to 2, there's no picking and choosing. It's just, I'm going to take it, I'm going to take it, I'm going to take it. And that, I think, is sad.
It'll be interesting to see how just the changes they make to certain rosters to like compensate for different things, and also they might just change certain rosters anyway with kind of skills or traits. I just very quickly put together a Dark Elf roster and see what you can now get. So for 1,000 TV, if they don't change anything to costs, and I'm highly doubtful that they won't change costs either, the 2 blitzers, a witch elf, both assassins, and then linemen up to 11 players with 2 rerolls takes you to 1,000 TV. So basically you're buying the witch elf for another 110 and you want another reroll, which kind of makes the tournament builds quite interesting, because you probably can't take either 3 rerolls, or you'd have to give up a witch elf for a runner. I haven't put any runners in there, by the way. I wouldn't be surprised to see runners go up to armor 9.
So just to answer Tractor's point here, which I think is both valid and also talks about a little bit about this issue that I see. So if you're talking about perpetual ongoing leagues, no, you don't have a goal to start buying a full team. But all NAF tournaments more or less guarantee that you have that there's very limited in the budget in that sense. And in that sense, I think And that's the concern about how I see these rules shifting. We are shifting more towards the rules need to be in line and useful for NAF-style tournaments. Not that we are seeing there's two ways of playing Blood Bowl. And in the old days, there was nothing called NAF-style. That's a player-made concept, which is cool and fine, and I would like that there was room for both. But what I'm seeing is more and more a leaning on the NAF style, making the rules conform with NAF style, making it fit with NAF style, and that concerns me. Because I play Blood Bowl for seeing teams growing and developing and dying. I hate players dying, but it's a part of the game, and I wouldn't love it as much if they didn't die. But that is all slowly fading with this. And that's what I feel.
That's very pessimistic, I think.
The bitter old man. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to me. Just ignore him. Just ignore the old bitter man in the corner. Listen to LittleWing, and definitely listen to Phil. Always. That's good advice. Just ignore the bitter old man.
Yeah, I think I think with some of it, it will just be interesting to see what they change.
Oh yes.
I think because we're coming up to about having sort of 2 hours.
I have to quit in 7 minutes.
Yeah, no, that's all right. So I think we'll just kind of end with this one question. I think if you were to want one change that hasn't been announced, what would you want it to be? One change that hasn't been announced, what would you want it to be?
Question.
So do you want me to go with mine first?
Go with your first.
What's the limit of the change? Is it like rework of a whole system, or is it just a tweak?
You could choose whatever you want. So I think probably for me, and I don't know what I would no, I was going to say randoming, but I don't think it is randoming, because I think that's down to leagues running their redrafts and things well. It's get rid of the effing argue the call.
I'll support that.
That needs to get in the bin. Just get rid of that.
Yeah.
Get rid of that rule.
Shit rule.
Not a rule.
Yeah, I could go with that. I mean, they've reworked the kickoffs, haven't they?
Do you know what I wouldn't even mind, and then I'll let you two do your things. I wouldn't even mind that if Sneaky Git kind of -1 to your roll on an argue the call. I'd even take that.
I think
something.
If we just gonna briefly touch on the argue the call, I think the biggest problem with argue the call is not so much that it's in the game. It is that the disadvantage of doing it is not big enough. Like there should be a real like you should really consider whether you want to do it. Like I think I proposed one time, like if you roll a 1, the judge is not just going to send off one player; he's going to send off 2 players from your team. Are you going to argue the call? No, it's a tough choice because you are risking something. It becomes a like right now arguing the call is like why not? Like I'm not just gonna do it anyway. But if you were actually risking something to get that potential luck, like getting 2 players sent off instead of 1, for example, like or something else similar, then it would be like, yeah, I might do that. And then it becomes, and that's what I mean, like by many of these game mechanics. I don't mind that they're, how to say, swingy, but it has to be balanced. Like it has to be like not a non-brainer to pick. Am I gonna argue the call? Of course I'm gonna argue the call. There's no reason not to. If I'm gonna lose another player from arguing the call, yeah, I'm not gonna argue that call, maybe. Because
it's very difficult though to sit that in the right point, because you do want people. Oh, yeah. You do want a situation that encourages you taking it, but you don't want to. If that's why I just think you just get rid of it.
Yeah,
that would be my one thing that I would want to. We'll go to the sunny and optimistic LittleWing next. So what would be your one thing that's not been announced that you would like to see?
Off the top of my head, I I hate foul appearance. I'd like to have seen that gone, but I think they've doubled down. And I'd give a second shout out to a bit more decay on some of the undead teams. So they would be my two.
Oh, you're putting me in a really hard spot because I'm supporting everything that's been mentioned so far. So I'm going to take something that is sort of the middle ground and yet something slightly different. I would like to remove all rules that work on a 6+ and not otherwise. Whether that be that lovely new one that you didn't go down on a 6, whether you don't get to do your action on a 6, whether it's a argue a call on a 6, anything where it's like, if you just roll a 6, yeah, magic happens and fuck all the other situations. That I really hate. I hate that because it's such a random thing and it's so either or that oh god, I hate it. So that would actually be both the argue the call, it would be foul appearance, it would be all the other, like the new skill that I'm getting. It's like, no, we don't need more of that shit. We need to get less of it. And definitely fix regeneration. That's been broken forever. At least it's not 2+ anymore. So at least we moved away from that. But let's fix it proper. But yeah,
It's that's an interesting one. I actually I mean, I'm going to argue for your thing, which ironically argues to keep argue the call in, is sometimes in sport, you know, you get, for example, little old Plymouth Argyle turn up to their home game in the FA Cup, and they're playing the all-conquering Liverpool, and they manage to beat them 1-0. And 99 times out of 100, that would never happen. Just some magic happens. Referee gives a penalty. Ryan Hardy scores. And of course, Archangel, you know exactly what I'm talking about here.
yes,
But
the clueless football fan here that has no
go sports.
yeah,
Go sports.
go people running off the ball.
But I love the fact that actually there is a mechanism within the game that allows for that magic to happen. It would make me sad if you were to remove
I both agree and fundamentally disagree. I love that magic. I don't like it that way around. So don't get me wrong, but whether kickoff table, like you and I had a really interesting match where you got, what was it, 3 or 4 blitzes and
I think it was 3 blitzes.
Three blitzes. I think that swayed the result just slightly. I'm not sure. I think it affected the result slightly, and in that sense, I think there's plenty of, let's call it, randomness. But I think for me, that type of randomness I can much better accept. That rolling one dice on a crucial area and it's just a 1 or a 6, and that one instant, and that fucks everything. That I have a problem with. Like
would you like accept it like going to like a D8?
D20 maybe more like D20. I think I could better accept, because then it becomes so randomly that it. So the problem is more like, a good example is, I played a match against I was playing dwarves, and I had a death roller, just for the funsies of it. You never know, like, and it made 3 argue the calls in a row. I did. Is that fair and balanced? And does that
one in 256? That is.
That is. But then if you're playing a race fairly often, that thing can happen. But the problem is, like, if a normal goblin doesn't get sent off, it's just a goblin. Don't get me wrong, but a goblin doesn't really matter much. The swinginess of keeping a death roll on the pitch or not is huge, and that is the problem. It's the scope of that thing. Whether it be weather or kickoff, it's generally like, of course, it really ifs with the game balance, but at least you get time, you get turns, you get time to sort of do something about it. You can deal with it. You can even plan ahead and have contingencies for it. That 1 in 6 from a foul appearance, well, that's just argue the call. Well, okay, fair enough, whatever. There's no way to work around it, and that I have an issue with.
I mean, it'll all be good fun once it all kind of kicks off. But obviously we're approaching sort of, I think, time where we've all got to go and do different things. I've got a lesson to plan for an observation tomorrow. I don't know if this is one of I will say we kind of decided this about 6 o'clock this evening to do this show, when I basically said, "Do you think it'd be a good idea to just kind of do an impromptu like chat about this article?" But so I will say, myself, I am signed up to the UKBBL's tabletop tournament in March. LittleWing is signed up to the UKBBL's tabletop tournament in March. Archangel is signed up to the UKBBL's tabletop tournament in March, along with a load of other familiar faces. Obviously, we've
Ilentio
got
and many of the
Gav,
other Unganeshis is
Gav is
also.
running it. The wonderful Galentio is coming. The wonderful Tector is coming. Obviously, Waldorf will be there. We've got, I'm sure Ugg will be there. Doug, there's lots and lots of familiar faces. I will say, if you are able to make the journey, more, but if you're UK based, even if you're not UK based, and you are able to come to the wonderful village of Sandy Acre just outside Nottingham on the weekend of, I think it's the 7th and 8th of March, 2026. You can come and play some board games and get a curry on Friday night with us. You can then play some Blood Bowl the next day. And then we've got some games in the evening, I suspect. Playing, what was it? Taco Goat Cat Cheese Pizza with Gav was absolutely
Robo
sensational.
Rally.
Last year, I think we also played a little bit of Flamme Rouge,
Oh,
Formula D.
oh,
That's some really good games that we played on the Saturday night.
and they're not balanced either.
Well, I hope I'm selling this, folks. It is a wonderful opportunity for everybody who plays in our league. Well, 50 people anyway, to come together and play. And it would be nice to see us kind of play across the table. It's a wonderful weekend. Can't remember who's Gav. Who's the reigning? Oh, it's that guy called Andy Davo, isn't it? Who's the reigning champion? So come and sit. I'm not sure whether Davo's going to be there, but if you want your chance to get hold of the UKBBL's mug for all of 30 seconds before Gav takes it back, you can come and play.
So I'm coming there purely for the T-shirt.
Oh yes, you can also get T-shirts, folks. It's really good. Davo will be there, so if you want to play against him, you want a chance to play against him. And obviously, we have a very important match tomorrow night.
Yeah,
I think it's tomorrow night, Thursday night.
Thursday night, yeah.
Thursday night.
That was me segueing into you, Archangel. Sort of lovingly introducing this semi-final.
Yes.
You and LittleWing are. You obviously didn't pick that up.
We were hosting that. Yes. So now I'm still struggling with the graphics here in the background.
You can tell that we don't do this professionally, folks. Right? If this was like the BBC, like we'd have all been sacked at this point.
I think they would see it as a satire program because the low production value that thing, that's what they would go for if we were to stay. But yeah. There's a semifinal on Thursday. LittleWing and I will be covering it. I expect that it will be great fun. It's definitely two competitive teams and players, so it should be great fun.
Depends whether those lizard men turn up like they normally do, naked, sort of with no armor whatsoever.
That seems to be a recurring issue for Snow Troll, though I have also noticed that it is very much either or. There's also just matches where his lizardman just goes through fire and brimstone and get unscathed, but it'll be very interesting.
I've never seen a lizard men team take more punishment than his one.
No, And I have to tell this anecdote because I have still not forgiven Snow Troll for the first match that I played against him, where he had a lizardman dodge out again from another square, go over, pick up the ball, two going for it, no rerolls, and scored and won the match. Still not forgiven him.
The magic of Blood Bowl.
Talking about unlikely things.
Archangel, that wouldn't have happened if he wasn't able to roll sixes. So don't take away the ability to roll a six. It's a very important part of the game.
I have no problem that 6 is a success. I have a problem with skills that only work on a 6+.
Sorry to Warsner's actually will be very interesting because Warsner lives for killing stuff. So he's
been also doing it really well in his division. So should be really good.
And that's to play Zenjo in the final, right?
Yeah. So potentially it will either be a lizard off or it will be a repeat of Orcs versus Lizardmen.
Well, I'm very much looking forward to that.
Yeah.
I will be at a pub quiz. I'm sorry, folks, because otherwise my friends will disown me. Well, like my non-digital friends.
They're important to keep.
They are important to keep, very much so. 7th and 8th of March, folks. Put it in your diaries. Holiday Inn in San Diego. Do it now. Sign up on Talk Fantasy Football. And I hope Gav is taking note of this. I'm doing my bit.
I think we should also consider. So the UK Twitch stream has now at this point earned $2.30. We will need to figure some way to how we're going to spend all that money.
That'll get us like 1/50th of a Kit Kat, I think, at the UKBBL TT, which is very good because I'm on Slimming World at the moment. So
off-brand soda. Anyways, I think we'll call it a night and leave you guys to do fun and other stuff and see you soon. At least this is bye for me this time.
Bye.
Yeah, good night.